Latchkey kids rejoice. It's Hamburger Helper time. To some, it's a sodium-filled, nostalgic taste of childhood. To others, it's just a cheap and easy way to whip up dinner. But how did this dry dinner mix become a staple of so many American homes? Today on Weird History Food, we're cooking up the history of Hamburger Helper, one skillet at a time. But before we get started, be sure to subscribe to the Weird History Food channel. And let us know in the comments below what other nostalgic meals you would like to hear about. Okay, now let's join hands, or a hand, and make a great meal.
Hamburger Helper, Helper, Hamburger Helper. Say cheese. Make a great meal.
During the economic downturn of the 1970s, cash-strapped American families looked for ways to stretch their meals further than ever before. Gone were the swinging 60s, where a mother of three could satisfy her entire family with jellied beef in a Jell-O mold. Today, those recipes are prosecutable. Dark days had fallen over the land, and the country found itself in the middle of a nearly 2-decade-long inflationary period. While all meat prices were on the rise, beef was hit particularly hard, as multiple cattle feed disruptions negatively affected the supply chain and caused farmers to shrink their herds. And you cannot cut corners by recycling your old cows into the feed. That's how you get mad cow. Beef became hard to come by, and hungry families cried out the nation over. They needed a helping hand, and who should answer their call but Betty Crocker herself? Well, not literally Betty Crocker. She's not a real person, and she never was. But the Betty Crocker brand, which has been owned and operated by General Mills since 1928. In 1967, Betty Crocker introduced 4 beef-based dinner mixes for struggling families. They consisted of noodles stroganoff, macaroni montebello, noodles canton, and rice teriyaki. You may have noticed they misspelled both canton and teriyaki. Everyone else did too, but no one seems to know why. It really didn't matter though, because the products, which required the use of 2 separate pans for cooking up the noodles and for browning the beef, failed to gain widespread appeal. 2 pans, Betty. We are at war. They were soon after pulled off the market, and Betty Crocker had to go back to the drawing board. Just 3 years later, General Mills home economist Marjorie Johnson came up with the idea that would catapult an all-new brand into households across America. What if they could capture the flavor of the 1967 product line, but have it all come together in just one easy-to-clean pan? One pan? Now you're talking, Betty. No more boiling noodles. No more shopping around for individual ingredients. No more pain and suffering. And so, in December of 1970, Betty Crocker first introduced Hamburger Helper.
Well, what can I cook that Dad and the boys would like?
Hamburger Helper, what I was planning.
This new product, boasting its one skillet method for meal prep, began as a West Coast exclusive. But thanks to marketing that included Johnson herself, it quickly spread throughout the rest of the country by the following year.
Dinner with Hamburger Helper is one of my specialties.
That launch, they featured 5 different flavors, including chili tomato, beef noodle, hash, rice oriental, and potato stroganoff. What's more, Betty Crocker promised that just 1 pan, 1 pound of hamburger, and 1 package of any of her new products could feed a whole family of 5. And if you've ever had to feed 5 people every single day of the week, you can see the appeal. Within the first year of its release, a whopping 27% of U.S. households had purchased at least 1 Hamburger Helper box. Its launch was so successful that within just a few years more, they expanded the initial 5-flavor lineup to include the now famous cheeseburger macaroni. And honestly, we could have halted all human progress at that point. Mission accomplished. Betty Crocker began playing with the non-beef helpers as well. First, there was 1972's Tuna Helper, which helped fish-loving families make loads of tuna casserole in one simple skillet. Then there was 1973's Fruit Helper. Yeah, Fruit Helper. We double-checked. A flop compared to its predecessors, this little number promised easy-to-make canned fruit-based desserts, including the Strawberry Fruit Crunch and the Coconut Pudding Fruit Crunch. Unfortunately, the failure of Fruit Helper was followed by a broader decline in overall sales, and by the late 1970s, Hamburger Helper's cash flow began to cash slow. They needed to course correct before the entire brand went under, and Betty Crocker knew just the man for the job. Meet the Helping Hand. He was an all-new mascot launched in 1977, meant to rejuvenate the Hamburger Helper brand. With only 3 fingers, a thumb, a nose like Rudolph, and the coal-black eyes of a rampaging shark, this little guy began to pop up in TV sets across America.
Hi, who's that?
That's the helping hand Mom gets with Hamburger Helper.
His eyes didn't have a static position on his face and instead shifted all about his head, seemingly unconnected from his hand-shaped body. It's a little creepy. His entire body is his face, but also his hand? How does that work? And those creepy qualities weren't entirely lost on the Hamburger Helper making public. For instance, in 1979, writer and director Scott Spiegel produced a short horror film called Attack of the Helping Hand. It starred Linda Quiroz and future Spider-Man director Sam Raimi, along with a young Bruce Campbell, who was made to voice both the Helping Hand and the Pillsbury Doughboy in the film.
So are you, baby.
Scott Spiegel, Raimi, and Campbell would later collaborate on The Evil Dead 2, which features a scene inspired by the short film in which Campbell's character must fight his own evil hand to the death. Luckily for General Mills, Attack of the Helping Hand had little reach, unlike their adorable new mascot. In rather wholesome commercials, the Helping Hand would appear out of nowhere, snap the fingers atop his head, and break out into song as he helped struggling families piece easy meals together. Like Mary Poppins, if she were a giant disembodied hand. He was a hit with families the nation over, and Hamburger Helper was back on track. As the 70s turned into the 80s and Hamburger Helper raced towards the new millennium, they again tried their hand at another spin-off product. In 1984, they released Chicken Helper, which was the same concept as the hamburger varieties with one key distinction, the chicken. Soon after, they released their own Sloppy Joe Bake, along with some all-new flavors such as the irresistible, delectable lasagna. Lasagna in a box. The future truly has everything, and we are lucky to live in it. It was around this time that the Helping Hand simply became known as Lefty, because he's a southpaw, and the Helping Hand takes valuable time to say. Time that could be spent eating Chicken Helper. Over just a handful of years, they released Asian Helper, Whole Grain Helper, Hamburger Helper Microwave Singles, and Pork Helper, the latter two of which were discontinued shortly after their initial launches. When will pork finally receive the help it deserves? Lefty found further fame in comedy sketches of the aughts. Playing up the mascot's creepiness, Jay Leno made a sketch in which a mother clubs Lefty with a wooden spoon and then feeds him to her family.
I want the song.
And a Mad TV sketch featured a dejected housewife seducing Lefty while her husband is out of town. Meanwhile, Saturday Night Live made a sketch poking fun at the brand's never-ending line of new products, wherein a couple is treated to Hamburger Helper's newest product, Hamburger Helper Antibacterial. After several years of being the butt of one too many jokes, no one wanted Hamburger Helper anymore.
I'm so sorry for your burden.
In 2005, Hamburger Helper even ranked third on the Food Network's Top 5 Fad Foods of 1970. Ugh, that's tough to bounce back from. The brand was in decline, and the rise of competing single-skillet dinner boxes increasingly cut into its market share, like a sentient hand face with a big pair of scissors. Foremost among these competitors were Velveeta Skillets, Kraft's 2011 answer to Hamburger Helper, but with the full backing of Cheezosaurus Rex behind it. Velveeta Skillets took off, and even though they cost more to make than Hamburger Helper, many customers were willing to pay the premium price just to get a taste of Kraft's Cheeseburger Macaroni Slayer, Ultimate Cheeseburger Mac. Within just 2 years of its launch, Kraft had successfully taken over a whole fifth of the dry dinner mix market. This increase likewise dropped Hamburger Helper's market share from 88% to 69%, a whopping 19 points. It turns out the Helping Hand may not have had the legs they'd hoped. Hamburger Helper was in the midst of a destabilizing period, and the brand almost didn't recover. The company needed to change quick if they wanted to save their product and their alarming mascot. So in 2013, they decided to rebrand entirely. Due to the increasing popularity of chicken, General Mills began their pivot by dropping the hamburger from the Hamburger Helper name. Ever since, the brand has officially been called Helper, even though the majority of us will continue to add the hamburger in there until we are cold in the ground. Along with this name change, they also revamped their packaging to more heavily feature Lefty. He'd saved them once before. Who's to say, nearly 40 years on, he couldn't save them once again? After all, they don't call him the Helping Hand for nothing. Oh, until they stopped calling him that is. After some additional marketing research, General Mills found that many of the customers they'd lost to other products were moms. The Helper brand was starting to be seen as a cheap, sodium-heavy alternative to healthier, higher-quality dry dinner mix meals. And choosy moms were happy to spend a little more to get what they perceived to be a better product for their families. With Hamburger Helper being seen as too cheap and unhealthy for nuclear families, the brand needed to court a new demographic in their time of need. The answer? Single young men. General Mills quickly shifted away from family-focused advertising and instead directed their attention to their new target demographic of single young men. With this move came a whole new marketing approach. Helper brought back their microwave singles and upped its presence on both Facebook and Twitter, engaging with pop culture like never before. For instance, in response to Jay-Z and Kanye West's album Watch the Throne, Helper came out with a masterpiece all their own, Watch the Stove. Released directly to SoundCloud, this all-new mixtape featured 5 different up-and-coming rappers, all vibing out over Helper's tasty lineup. Its songs included Feed the Streets, Hamburger Helper, Crazy, Food for Your Soul, and In Love with the Glove, all of which today have a combined 15 million listens on the platform. That's more than expected for a novelty food EP. They even produced 2 accompanying music videos, one of which features Lefty dancing uncomfortably close to a woman at the club. Shortly after dropping their mixtape, Helper threw the Lefty 40-ounce Bounce, a wild party in Brooklyn, New York, celebrating the brand's 40th anniversary in 2017. Lefty was DJing, and that's not a joke. In 2022, after over 50 years on the market, Eagle brand bought Helper from General Mills for $610 million. Up from its original 5 flavors, Helper now has over 40 different flavors to choose from, including cheesy enchilada, tomato basil penne, and ranch and bacon. However, it's been almost 15 years since the company's last spin-off attempt. Pork Helper's ship may have sailed, but we're still holding out hope for Haggis Helper. So what do you think? What's your favorite Hamburger Helper flavor? Let us know in the comments below, and while you're at it, check out some of these other weird history food videos.